We all know and share a healthy fear of snakes. They live under rocks and slither on their bellies to get around. But there are actually dozens of snake species that don't live on land at all. Instead, they've taken to the sea, and many of them never grace the ground. The yellow-bellied sea snake rides the waves all over the world. Despite their name, they are no cowards. They're the most widely distributed snake species on Earth. Adapting your body and habits to take the world by storm is the sea snake's way in life, death, and taxonomy. Welcome back to Life, Death, and Taxonomy. It's your 30 minutes of interesting animal information.
And I'm Carlos.
I'm Joe. And you're Carlos.
Yes, we knew that. And I'm
Thank
Carlos.
you to Cassie for the creation of our theme song. To hear more of Cassie's music, please search Cassie Michelle on YouTube.
And thank you to Brian for the creation of this week's artwork. To check it out, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter at LD Taxonomy, or visit us at our home on the web at ldtaxonomy.com.
And today we're talking about a reptile whose lady is the sea. But more on that later.
One true love is the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And he will go sailing no more.
Those are different songs, but he will go sailing a lot more.
Go sailing beyond the sea no more. Actually, both Somewhere Beyond the Sea is about not sailing anymore. And then the Randy Newman song is also about sailing no more.
But what about Brandy, which is about continuing to sail and not settling down?
Is that what that's about?
That's yeah. Haven't you seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2?
Once.
He explains the meaning of that song in that.
Yeah, my brain probably turned off once the story stopped about 20 minutes into the movie and then picked up at 20 minutes before the end.
I'm not trying to get canceled, so we're gonna cut out you not liking Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Look, it's Chris Pratt. He's already canceled, so
for playing a Mario.
Yep, but we're talking about the yellow-bellied sea snake. The cowardly coils. It's also known as the pelagic sea snake, but we're going to call it here the cowardly coils. The serpentine surface sipper. And the ironic islander. There's a poet's name that I'll mention later. I was trying to figure out a way to incorporate it in, and I couldn't. I'm just not clever enough today.
What's his name?
Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Cowardly Coleridge, but I don't want to make fun of Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
What does he have to do with this snake? You don't know. That's the problem.
Well, yeah, he has nothing to do with a snake, but he has everything to do with writing the poem Water, Water Everywhere, but Not a Drop to Drink.
Gotcha. That'll more on that later.
Which is not the name of the poem. It's the name of the poem is the Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Interesting.
But that's just a famous line from it. And that's why I've called it the ironic islander, because it's ironic that the sea snake is constantly surrounded by water, but not being a fish or a cetacean can't drink it.
Very true.
But more on that later. But what we're going to do more of right now is talk about my animal encounter for the week. So this morning, I was just sitting in the backyard watching my son stumble around drunkenly on our patio, trying to stop him from picking up dog poop.
Drunkenly as in the way babies are always drunk?
No,
drunk on being a baby?
No, he's actually drunk.
Gotcha.
We feed him lots and lots of absinthe every morning before 8:30, and then we just like to watch him walk around after that.
It is funny. It's
It's one
harder.
of
It's hard for him to begin with, so it can only get funnier.
right, exactly. Life is just it's just hard right now with all of the very little sleep we're getting. So we might as well make it entertaining for ourselves by having an inebriated child. Just kidding. We don't. He's not actually drunk. In case you're missing it, he just is barely learning how to walk and is stumbling around holding a cup of water.
More irony.
Yes. Lots of drops to drink. Anyway, 2 dogs showed up just into my yard. I need a fence because this is now the 4th dog, and there were also 2 cattle that came into our yard. So definitely need a fence. That's happening soon. They're just expensive. Anyway, 2 dogs showed up. One of them was a small old Cocker Spaniel. The other one was this bigger like hound mutt. And they were just kind of hanging out with each other, but the Cocker Spaniel was moving really, really slowly. So I walked to the Cocker Spaniel, and it kind of got surprised. I think it's partially blind. But anyway, I came up and got him, and then the other dog was kind of shepherding the Cocker Spaniel, I guess, self-proclaimed protector, or maybe they were together wherever they were before. But they were just like, they were a mess. Like they were soaking wet and covered in like little burrs and stickers from the forest and whatnot.
Oh, so they've been like gallivanting for a while.
Yeah, or at least like it seemed like maybe a couple days or something like that. Which isn't the first time we've seen a dog in this condition. So whenever we see a dog like a stray in the neighborhood, like we usually try to like pick it up and see if it's seems domesticated or like it's just nearby. And the last dog we found belonged to a house just 4 houses down, so that worked out really nicely. But these 2, we immediately brought them. The only way the big dog would stop just walking away from us and circling around is if we opened up our front door. So we went inside front door and we brought them both in, and we were just putting pictures of them up online and stuff. And then I started trying to take him for a walk and just to see if there was anybody in the neighborhood that wanted them. And the big dog rolled over, and I have never seen this many fleas. Probably in my life altogether, but definitely never seen a dog with this many fleas. It was disgusting. And so I'm like frantically trying to scrape the fleas off this dog, which if you've ever dealt with fleas on a dog, you know that like trying to scrape them off like that is futile. Some of them are coming off, but they really like know how to dig their way in there and avoid being scratched off. I mean, that's their whole shtick as fleas, is to not get scratched off. So I was like, well, darn it. Both of these dogs were in my house for like 15 minutes. So I brought them out to the backyard, and the other dog, the Cocker Spaniel, there were even more fleas on that one. So I was just washing them and stuff, and I felt so bad for them. Anyway, so I washed them and sprayed them with flea stuff, and now my yard is infested with fleas, and my house, my downstairs had a bunch of fleas. We killed them with spray and stuff, but now we have to have the yard treated. We took the dogs to the shelter. Hopefully they get recognized by their owner if the owner was good. If not, hopefully they get adopted after a week. The owner has a week to pick them up, and then they go up for adoption. But they're older dogs, so I'm just hoping that they get picked up.
Yeah.
But man, that was so many fleas. I feel like I have fleas on me right now. Like I just, if you see me itching, it's because of that. It's because
I have never ever seen a stray dog that was willing for me to come close to it. Every once in a while, there's a dog in the neighborhood that's just wandering around the street, and I'll try to approach it, and it'll just like take off.
The last one I saw was a big old black dog that would not let me get close to it at all. But this one, it was the big dog was kind of shadowing this small dog that moved the small, old, partially blind dog that was just not able to move very quickly. So as soon as I knelt down and pet that dog, he kind of freaked out and then sat down and laid down because he didn't know what was going on. And then the other dog just circled around me. And so that's how we got both of them. Otherwise, I don't think we would have ever gotten that bigger dog. But, and then I had to, my van has fleas in it. There's just dead fleas everywhere, and hopefully not too many live ones. And they're the worst. We should do the flea on our.
They are crazy.
Yeah, they're terrible. Them and ticks and bed bugs and just and chiggers and mites, just they have their place in the food chain, but man, I don't like them. No, I don't. But anyway, that's my animal story for the week.
An interesting animal story. You got any descriptions?
Yes. So it's time to taxonomize this, Captain. What does science say? Science says it's in the kingdom you know, love, and are in Animalia. The phylum is Chordata. The class is Reptilia. The order, Squamata. Same as lizards. Suborder is Serpentes. Not the same as lizards. Snakes. The family is Elapidae. It's an elapid. The genus is Hydrophis. Or Hydrophis. And then the species is Platurus. So the binomial nomenclature is Hydrophis platurus.
Cool.
But since we're in the business of naming things, it's time for my favorite part of the show, critter groups. Part of the show where I ask you, Joe, a question, and that question is the same every time. What is the name of a group of this animal, or what is the term of entry, or what is the collective noun? It's all the same. If you saw a group of yellow-bellied sea snakes, or just snakes in general, would you say it's A, a slither of snakes, B, a den of snakes, C, a pit of snakes, or D, a shale of snakes?
I've heard a pit of vipers. I'm going to go with a slither of snakes. It's just on the nose enough to be the actual name.
Is that your final answer?
It is.
Incorrect. The answer was den.
Shale? Okay. I should have known. A den of vipers.
Yeah,
Bible,
I think that's the biblical thing. I don't think it's a pit of vipers.
The Pharisees were a pit of vipers.
I think they were a den of vipers, right?
Yeah.
Not
yeah.
There are pit
I've heard
vipers.
Both. There's pit vipers.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus called the Pharisees a den of vipers.
Yes.
Or a brood of vipers.
Oh. I bet you that's something else. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're exposing. I'm exposing how little I have this memorized. But yes, it's a den of snakes. There's lots of. There's several terms of entries for snakes, so it's been a nice well to come back to. But do you want to talk about what this thing looks like?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds like a good idea. It's that part of the show. So this is a medium.
You often enter into that. It's part of the show by saying, "Do you want to talk about what this thing looks like?" And I'm like, "Was I supposed to do that?" Oh no.
I guess it's I guess we are gonna talk. I'm gonna talk about it, and you're gonna listen.
I'm gonna nod.
So this is a medium length snake with a dark brown back and a bright yellow belly. Believe it or not, spanning its entire body length. So it's counter shaded, a lot like many oceanic animals. If you don't remember what counter shading is, it means it has a light underbelly and then a dark overbelly. Like a great white shark or a whale or something like that. So that when an animal is looking up at this animal, the light underbelly blends in with the sun and the lighter surface. And if you're above the animal and you're looking down, the dark back looks blends in with the darkness of the deep. So that's just a form of basic camouflage that a lot of animals have, and the yellow-bellied sea snake has it. Although there are some forms that are entirely yellow, which totally just kicks that whole theory out the window. Just yellow all around. The tail is a very, very light yellow, possibly white, depending on the shade, and it has these black cow spots. So it looks just like a black and white dairy cow spots. It's kind of interesting. It looks like it loves Chick-fil-A and it's trying to get a free sandwich. And it has a very long and thin head. Not very long, but in comparison to its body, in comparison to other animals like a viper, it has that that wide triangular head. It's in contrast to that, very long and thin instead. It kind of looks like a garden snake's head. And I don't want to go too much further into the description because it factors into the major fact, I think. So I'll just leave it there. So it's basically just picture a medium-length snake with a dark brown back and a bright yellow belly and a little thin head. And a Chick-fil-A paraphernalia on its tail.
Paraphernalia. I think all yellow ones are younger snakes.
Are they?
Yeah. When they're small, they're all yellow. I think.
I saw it was like bright yellow form. So I don't know if it's just I don't know if it's just like their Super Saiyan mode.
This isn't even my final form.
Yeah,
if they see my Chick-fil-A form.
if they absorb enough spirit energy, they become entirely yellow, and then can start to move planets around. You really don't want to mess with these guys when they turn completely yellow.
Would you like to know how big they are?
Yeah.
No, not really. That is the beloved Measure Up segment, the official listener's favorite part of the show. The part of the show when we present the animal size and dimensions in relatable terms through a quiz that's fun for the whole family. It's also part of the show that's introduced by you when you send in audio of yourself saying, singing, or chittering the words Measure Up into ldtaxonomy@gmail.com. We don't have a new Measure Up intro this week.
Someone's chittered, right?
I think we've done a chitter, yeah.
I think your sister chittered Measure Up.
That rings true. That means we get to hear from an animal, and Carlos has to guess what it is.
Recently it's been going really well. I think the last one I whiffed on it, but I had a streak of like 4. So let's see if we can catch it again.
This one might be a little harder. Without further ado,
25% chance.
The listener's favorite part of the show. The guy going, is not part of the...
I was like, I don't understand what's happening. I'm confused and disturbed.
So these are all... I'm going to give you 4 real birds. 4 real names of 4 real birds. Is it A, a magnificent frigate? B, a satanic nightjar? Another satanic animal is out there.
Along with the leaf gecko, yeah.
Yeah. C, the little bustard. like mustard with a B.
That's Tubby Bustard to you.
Or D, the tiny sky tyrant.
Wow. Why don't we do more birds? Because they have interesting names, but they're not really that fascinating on their own.
Yeah.
Magnificent frigate. Satanic nightjar. Buster Baxter. And whatever the last thing you said.
The tiny sky tyrant.
Tiny sky tyrant. I mean, at this point, I've almost completely forgotten what the sound of the thing was, but I really do have a 25% chance on this one because I'm guessing out of the blue. Tiny sky tyrant. Why not?
Tiny sky tyrant. Final answer.
Is being a tyrant to this poor man who's groaning in the background.
Final answer?
Yes.
The correct answer was magnificent frigate.
Oh, that was between the two.
Yeah, you may have seen this kind of bird.
Those are my two favorite names out of the four, so I was just gonna go with whichever one I fancied.
It's like a black seabird with a big red throat that inflates.
I do know what you're talking about. The magnificent.
But the tiny sky tyrant is tiny.
Frigate. The magnificent.
I want to see it.
Frigate.
I would like to see the baby.
Beautiful.
There's other tyrant birds.
We'll assume that everything is fine then. Glad I'm not the
Okie
one
dokie.
recording.
So, let's talk length. Females are slightly longer at 88 centimeters or 35 inches. How many yellow-bellied sea snakes go into their typical max dive depth?
That's something I probably could have accidentally researched, but I didn't. Lucky you.
Here's a hint. Sea snakes are often observed in oceanic drift lines, which are ribbons of floating seaweed, debris, and driftwood. Did you have that as a fact?
No.
Good, because these drift lines can stretch for miles and act as natural meeting places for pelagic animals.
Yeah, but I'm doing their depth, right?
Yes.
Max depth, so I do know that they can dive for long periods of time, thanks to a special ability they have. 200 feet? That seems like a lot for a little snake, for a 3-foot snake. But we'll go with it. I should be able to do 200 divided by 3 in my head, but I won't. The answer is 66. My answer is 66. 66 snakes sinking in the sea surreptitiously. 66 sea snakes sinking in the sea surreptitiously.
Final answer.
Yeah. Yes, final answer.
C. The correct answer is 56.8.
Whoa, that was close. Whoa. So the answer was what, like 170 feet?
50 meters or 164 feet.
Ah, wow. Oh, I'm pleased. My first instinct was to say 1,000. So glad I didn't go with that. My knowledge of actually scuba diving helped a little bit there. Because I know that 1,000 feet is ridiculously deep.
It is. It's Empire
like
State
depth.
Building deep. Let's talk weight. They're about 48 grams. Okay. I forgot to get that in American.
Yes. Tell me what it is in freedom units, please.
48 grams.
Can you tell me how many cocaines that is?
48 grams to feet.
To feet.
1.6 ounces. So how many yellow-bellied sea snakes go into the heaviest pumpkin ever recorded?
What does this have to do with anything?
It's just October.
Oh.
It's just
okay.
Just theme. When you can't theme it on the animal, you theme it on the times.
True words have never been spoken. Well, you don't have a hint? You're not going to interrupt me with a hint?
I do have a hint. The pumpkin was grown by Matthias Willemans. There's a J in there. It was grown in October 2016 in Germany. This record has been beaten 5 times in as many years before it was solidified by Matthias.
1,000 pounds. It seems... I'm just picturing a massive pumpkin, like something you would ride to the ball in if it were enchanted. So 1,000 pounds.
Car-sized. Carriage-sized.
So we're going to do our normal math. The answer is exactly on the nose. 10,000 snakes.
10,000
Did you say 1.6 ounces?
48 grams. Oh, so what I said was like upper end for the length. Yeah, 1.3, 1.6 Yeah, 47, 48 grams approximately. An adult with a length of 49 centimeters. So this is probably more average. It's about half the size of the upper end, which is what we were talking about.
A 1.5-foot snake, about this big. 1.6 ounces. All right, my answer is still 10,000. I can't believe that snake is that light.
Well, the correct answer is 25,329.5 sea snakes. The pumpkin was 1,190.49 kilograms.
Kilograms, yeah.
2,624 libs.
That is a big pumpkin.
That
I want to smash it.
Yeah. I wonder what they did with it. I wonder if they ate it. I wonder if big pumpkins taste good.
I'm not a huge fan of pumpkin in general. I like the smell of this pumpkin spice candle I have, but that's about it.
Well, that's all I got for that. Do you have any quick facts before we get into the big fact?
I sure do. All right, so we should talk about where this thing lives. It lives all over the place. It's basically along almost all of the coasts of the Indian and Pacific Oceans around the equator. So all along the east coast of Africa and the islands there, all along the coast of India, all of Southeast Asia, North Australia, all the way up to the Koreas, and then even all the way over to the west coast of North and Central America and northern Peru. So they are all over the place, except the Atlantic and Arctic Oceans. They like warm waters that are close to land, and ultimately they are one of the most widely distributed snakes in the world, and is the only sea snake that has a native range around Hawaii. And it's been sighted in the Atlantic, but that is not considered its native range. Most likely, it's being pulled in as ballast. So I think we've mentioned it before. Oftentimes, pelagic animals, meaning animals that live in the open ocean, are sucked into ships as they take on water based on their weight in order to be as stable as possible. So they'll take in a certain amount of water to sink down to a certain amount so that they're stable and not too far up. And that often takes in a bunch of animals from one place, and then they sail to the other end of the world and drop them off. So they end up being where they're not supposed to be. And that's probably why we've seen them in the Atlantic.
You need a fine mesh filter. But I'm sure there's a reason they don't do that.
Because it would be clogged up with sea life, like mush.
Or it would just take way too long to take in the water.
Maybe. So the yellow-bellied sea snake eats small reef and open water fish. They specifically like to float on the surface of the water, pretending to be floating seaweed. And then fish will come up to find food or shelter, and then they are treated to an unhealthy dose of neurotoxins, which is basically any neurotoxins is an unhealthy dose. Sea snake venom is particularly bad in terms of venom in general across the animal kingdom, and it will quickly cause paralysis, respiratory depression, and kidney failure or renal failure, which are three things you really don't want to happen when you are swimming in the ocean. And you really don't want them to happen in general, to be honest. The fishermen are the most common human victims. They will catch them in their nets and get bit as they're trying to remove them. They report that the initial bite is practically painless. So that's nice. You can look forward to that. But then you also get to look forward to dizziness, difficulty swallowing, nausea, weakness, shortness of breath, etc. And then the three things I mentioned earlier, paralysis, respiratory depression, and kidney failure. It can even land you in a coma. It is very, very potent. And we've mentioned this before, but it is a concept that is difficult to understand. The way that they measure the potency of venom or just toxins in general is called the LD50 level, which stands for lethal dose 50%. So what they'll do is they will administer the toxin to a group of animals of various species, and the amount of toxin that it takes to kill 50% of those animals is the LD50 level. And it is really, really low for sea snake venom, where it would be a lot higher for, say, like spider venom or something like that. And super high for, like 7-Up. But that's only really a measure for animals, so it's tough to tell exactly what that level would be for humans, but we can use this level to compare it to other venoms. It is not the most lethal venom in the world, or even in snakes, but it's up there, and almost all sea snakes have a very potent venom, so steer clear of them if you see them. Overall, the behaviors I'm gonna leave in your camp, Joe, but they do live their whole lives in the ocean, and they use ocean currents, as you mentioned earlier, to basically go all over the place. They are world travelers. And that's all I got.
Okay. So let's talk about the major fact, which is the fact that they are made for the sea. So they are different than other snakes in several ways. The yellow-bellied sea snake is a genuine ocean reptile. It's a true snake of the sea, which means a true sea snake is not going to willingly leave water. There are unfaithful sea snakes that like to swim in the water, but they will also go on land and not have a horrible time.
Commit.
You're lukewarm. The ocean spits you out of its mouth.
Hey, it's Revelation. Snakes, serpents, it all works.
One of the most obvious aquatic adaptations is its body shape. Sea snakes have flat bodies like an eel. Their body tapers to a keel like a boat. Like a
banana keel.
Yeah. A banana keel like an eel.
It's key and peel put together.
Yeah.
Keel.
This helps with... I assume this helps with aquadynamics. Helps them to swim.
It's the thing... Quickly. Yeah, it's the thing that allows boats to stay streamlined. It's also the thing that during keel hauling, they'll chuck somebody overboard with a rope and drag them underneath the boat as a punishment.
To get tickled by barnacles.
Not now, I suppose. Hopefully not now.
On most snakes, ventral scales, which is the scales on their bellies, are the longest or the largest scales. Big, long, smooth scales to glide across the ground with. But ventral scales are comparably small on sea snakes because of that tapered keel. So they're at the bottom of this ridge. They're little tiny scales. But it gets more interesting when you look at what's underneath the surface. Get it? It's an ocean snake. It's underneath the surface all of the time.
I got it. Thank you.
The first oddity is their lungs. Unlike eels, sea snakes do not have gills. And they have to return to the surface of the ocean to breathe. But they spend as much as 90% of their time underwater, underneath the water. There's a word for that. It's underwater. How do they do that? How do they spend so much time down under? The average snake has a pair of lungs that runs, well, I shouldn't say the average. The average land snake has a pair of lungs that runs from their neck to about halfway down their body. Sea snakes have lungs that are much longer, running almost the full length of their bodies. So they're just full on. They're just full lung.
They're long lungs.
Long lungs.
Lovely
That's a
long
fun
lungs.
word. Fun phrase.
Mm-hmm. That's what I should. That should
Lovely
have been
lanky long lungs.
Ew, I don't like it.
So most sea snakes can hold their breath for up to 30 minutes, but true sea snakes, like our friend the yellow-belly, can last for longer. They may last underwater as much as 90 minutes without having to come up for air. I saw that some can stay down for like 8 hours. Other species
of sea snakes.
Yeah,
that's interesting because like that's more than whales. Even 90 minutes is more than whales. Yeah,
they were smarter than
and primates. Turtles and hippos and other animals that spend most of their time underwater. Or sorry, underneath the water.
Yes. They're not technically underneath the water either.
There's water above them, so they are underneath some water.
That's
just
true.
Not all of it.
When you say the water,
big water.
We used to think that sea snakes didn't need to drink fresh water, but how silly we were back then. When we were younger and naive.
Earlier
they
today.
They do need to drink fresh water. Yeah. But when I say we, I mean humanity.
Humans.
Today, I didn't think about it. Before today, I had no thoughts about it. But now I see the truth. But where do they get fresh water? On the ocean, of course. That's right, on the ocean. Precipitation gathers on the surface of the ocean, and sea snakes are apparently able to drink this like rain and dew like someone who only likes the heads of beer. Just
skimming off the top.
Slurping up the top. Yeah.
Like someone embezzling.
Like
They're
fresh cream.
Which I don't. That threw me
happens.
for a loop because fresh water is more dense than salt water. You're more buoyant in salt water than you are in fresh water. So I would assume that the fresh water would just sink down and mix. But
wait, say that again?
Salt water is less dense than fresh water, which means that the fresh water should sink into the salt water and mix or collect at the bottom or something like that. But it seems like it stays on top for a little bit.
For at least a little bit. Maybe they need to get it like fresh.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing is that it was fresh. I actually did some of the research here, not knowing that this was your major fact.
If you dump just a ton of water, fresh water, onto salt water, I'm sure that on the top there will be less salt for a little while.
For a little
good
bit,
amount less. But when there isn't any ocean dew, they can survive without water for about 3 months. Which is good.
I saw 7.
Oh, yeah?
On Wikipedia.
It could be. I saw a study. But
all right. I trust the study, not Wikipedia.
It could be old.
But that makes sense because they don't really go up on land, and who knows when it's going to rain. Like their only source of water is, I hope that it rains and I'm there for it.
They can also drink brackish water up to 50% seawater.
Well, that makes sense because I imagine that if you dumped a bunch of fresh water onto salt water, it would at best be brackish.
Most drink at lower brackish values, and 20% of snakes that were tested did not drink at all. Moreover, some individuals drank fresh water immediately following capture, providing preliminary evidence that palamies, which is the genus, dehydrate at sea.
They're like, oh, thank you so much for fresh water.
They do spend time on the coast, so maybe they come into like estuaries to drink
brackish water.
Interessante. They're less dependent on fresh water. That's all I got.
Did you mention that they absorb water through their skin? Or oxygen through their skin?
I did not.
Yeah, so that was that was why they can dive for long periods of time, is because they can they can't absorb all the oxygen they need for the long term. But that's another reason why they can stay down for so long, is because they can absorb it through their skin. Their skin is just a big partial lung.
In the water?
Yeah, the oxygen from the water into the skin. This species can take up to 33% of its oxygen requirements through the skin while diving and swimming at the surface of the water. It has cutaneous gas exchange, which means
I think we
gas exchange through the skin.
we've talked about somebody else that does that.
There's definitely, like, frogs will drink through their skin. I don't know if we've encountered an animal that has that breathes through the skin. Maybe we have, but yeah, that's
interesting.
That'd be really helpful for basically any non-fish that lives in any animal that doesn't have gills, that spends all its time in the ocean. Definitely wishes it had cutaneous gas exchange.
Like
yeah,
seals?
I mean, I do. You imagine you could just put your hand in the water and do some breathing. Yeah, seals and pinnipeds and cetaceans. Look at us,
dugongs,
using our classification taxonomy knowledge. But yeah, that's all you got.
I saw that they were literally riders of the storm, meaning they use storms to get around.
Huh.
They ride. So I bet that also helps them drink. They probably love storms.
I would. You get tossed around a bit. Maybe
it's like a car with
death.
A water bottle in it.
Oh, I was like, you know what? I have no idea what dolphins and whales drink, and they drink salt water. But they also get fresh water out of the food they eat. And ocean birds can filter out salt out of the water as well, through their noses. So
yeah, I know that marine iguanas have like a special ability to like get rid of salt, excess salt, because they're just munching on saltwater plants.
So like they'd be forgiven for thinking that this snake has this, because the yellow-bellied sea snake has a salt gland, but it. And so they're I forgive them personally. I don't know for thinking that they use that salt gland to drink salt water and then filter out the salt. But clearly they were as wrong as you can be.
Basically, this study is saying that it's like an advanced stage of adaptation to full marine life, whereas
so
a
maybe
dolphin
soon
is
have
like
a gill.
end stage adaptation, because
maybe they'll
drink.
Yeah, maybe they'll either do full, or maybe both. They'll do full cutaneous oxygen gas exchange, so that they don't ever have to surface, and they'll be able to filter salt water and drink it. And then they'll just be, and then maybe their habitat will go below the surface, and they'll start eating different things. Who knows what the next several thousand years will bring?
The business trajectory of the sea snake.
Yeah, you got a 10x. Whatever that means for a sea snake. This is a really interesting snake, actually. Sea snakes are pretty fascinating. Crazy toxic venom. And waiting until it rains to drink the water off the top of the ocean. That's pretty crazy. So, for you out there in Podcastia, go with the currents. Tour the world's oceans. And don't drink the salt water like the yellow-bellied sea snake here in Life, Death, and Taxonomy.
Hey Taxonomy Titans, thanks for listening to the episode. Just a few quick things. As always, reviews and social media engagement are greatly appreciated, but recommending the podcast to friends is the best way to help us grow. If you'd like some LDT flavored merch, check out teespring.com/stores/taxonomy-tees. That's it. Thanks for listening all the way to the end.
Life, Death, and Taxonomy is my favorite in the world podcast.
Blast off.
Testing.
Up.
Yeah, blast off like William Shatner did today.
Did he die?
No, he went to space on a Blue Origin rocket.
You know, the Dragon, whatever, SpaceX's Dragon, splashed down off the coast of Jacksonville, and Bibby thought we had an intruder. I didn't even wake up.
Like it was really loud?
Yeah, it was like a big boom, and like people were reporting that they thought that somebody was breaking into their house.
Huh.
Like it was this sonic boom of it passing over us and landing in the Atlantic. So, yeah, he's been officially labeled a disturber of the peace.